going to go through a couple of things, show you how to adjust things here and there on your 6L, kind of give you a little more information about it. Tools needed. You're going to need 2 1/2-inch wrenches, 1 9/16 inch wrench, and a 1/8 Allen key. It could be a T-handle, it can be this style Allen key, it doesn't matter as long as it's 1/8 of an inch. Alright, that being said, first things first, I'm going to show you how to adjust the tension on your belt, because that's the first thing we're going to have to do in order to get anything off of here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my 9/16 inch wrench, I'm going to come to the side of my machine here, and if you see this, I've got a threaded bolt, and on the side here I've got 2 nuts. What I want to do is loosen the one furthest away. And I'm going to back that nut off. Can you see that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back that nut all the way out to loosen this up, and do the same with the bottom. I'm going to run it all the way back. So then what I'm going to do is, now that was loosened, I can shove this whole roller back. But first things first, now I need my other wrench, which is the 1/2 inch. I'm going to come down to this roller, and we're just going to give it a little loose. Get it real loose. You don't have to take it out, just get it loose. Now, as you can see, I'll move this back. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side real quick. I've just moved that whole roller back and forth, right? Now I've got plenty, no tension on this belt. Now I can take it off. So what I want to do now, slide this belt until I get to cleats. I did forget one tool, you'll need needle nose. So what we'll do is we'll grab our needle nose. There's a little bitty wire, whatever you want to call it, that holds these together. What you'll do is bend that out and pull the whole thing out. It'll slide right out. I'll show you real quick, make this easy. Now you see what I'm talking about. We've got a little wire. That's what holds your belt together. Make sure you do not lose this. We'll take that apart. I'm going to set it under my machine. Now I can lay the belt completely open. So now I have full access to both rollers, right? Obviously we're not touching this one, so we're going to leave that one alone. Herein lies your problem. First things first you're going to have to do is take off the cover. It's 3 little bolts. Actually, I told you I lied again. I forgot one more tool. Got another one. It's a 7/16 wrench. So what you'll do here, there are 3 bolts going to this. Just loosen those up. They're easy to find. You might need 2 of them to hold this. You might need 2 to hold this out. So you go to the outside, inside. Pull our chain cover right off. Make sure, what I like to do is take all my nuts and bolts that came off of this, and I'm going to place them inside so I know that I don't lose them. Alright. Moving on. Next thing you're going to want to do, we've got to loosen the tension on my chain. What that means, I've got 4 bolts which holds the motor. Now the motor is your chain tensioner on this. What I'm going to do, same 7/16 inch wrench, I'm gonna loosen these a couple turns. Like I said, you don't have to come all the way out. As long as you can see daylight between that, you're good. Alright, now that I've gotten them loose, what you're going to do is pick up on the motor. Now you can see my chain is loose. What I'll do, slide this off the top if I can, set it out of the way, right? You can set that back down, let it loose. We're good. Now what I can do is take this off. So, step-by-step instruction. This is where it gets, I would say, finicky, not difficult. Just it takes your time. First things first, I've got to remove the outer sprocket. There are two, basically a lock washer that's on this, that's a part of the sprocket, and there are two little pins that are located in this lock washer. What I'll do is I'll grab my Allen keys. You'll hear them pop, just loosen them a couple times. And it'll slide right off. Now make sure you do not lose this key. This key right here is very important. Has to stay with it. Make sure that stays with it and we do not lose it. Once again, I'm gonna place everything right here so I know it's not walking away. Next thing, we're gonna loosen my bearings. There are 2 bolts on both sides, 4 total. Super easy. This one, all right. So now before I've got my bearings loose, before I take them apart, what I want to do is there's lock washers or a lock collar that is incorporated in both of these bearings. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my T-handle Allen key or my 1/8 inch Allen key, whatever you have, and you'll find 2 of them. Loosen these up. Make sure you don't turn these 5 or 6 times, because if so, you can pull this whole little pin out. As you can see, we don't want to lose that thing. If you lose it, you are in some serious trouble. So just back them off just a little bit and you'll be just fine. We're going to do that for both bearings. Alright, at this point, I should be able to slide this back and forth. Alright, which I can, as you can see. I can slide back and forth. So now I'm safe to take this apart. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one side only. And what I like to do is leave the long side in, pull the short side out first. So I'm going to start on this bearing, and you'll understand that. There's a shorter shaft when I show you. You'll know what I'm talking about. Or the shaft is shorter on one side. Once again, keeping all my parts together, this is what I like to do. Take them apart. I'm going to set these separately because they do not go back together with this. Just so we know exactly where stuff's going back. Same thing again. Keeping all my parts together so we don't lose them. Alright, at this moment in time, you see my whole thing falls out, right? So now what I want to do is pick up, loosen these. Alright, now we've got all 4 of them out. What I'm going to have to do is slide this whole thing out. Just like so. Now we've removed it. We'll take our bearings off. Just like so. Now I have all my parts. Now, the fun begins. We get to put everything back together. This is what you are receiving. Notice there is a long part of the shaft and a shorter part of the shaft. The long part comes out towards your chain. This is where that key I stated earlier in the video, this is what that needs to, so basically it'll mount just like this. Remember, the long part sticks out towards your chain. Alright? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my new roller and shaft, I'm going to slide the bearings on the end, I'm not going to tighten anything, slide them both on, leave them really loose. You can see I can still slide these back and forth. Then we'll come in here, I'm going to slide the long end in first, and then set this up. Now, before we tighten this, I want you to notice there's nipples on these bearings for you to grease. Now, it would be in your better interest to keep these facing up, or in the future when you go to grease these things, you won't be fighting with it. You just pop the nickel on there and you're good to go. So now I've got my nipple facing up. Here's what I'm going to do. The bolt goes in first. Then you have a washer, a lock washer, and a nut, right? Those are going to go on the outside. The nut always goes on the outside. And we're simply just going to put this thing back together how we took it apart. Super easy. I'm not going to tighten anything down until I've gotten everything in place. Stay out of the way so you can see me doing this. Remember, washer. Let me show you the difference. I hope you know this. There's a washer and a lock washer's got a little split. You can see that. That goes, so the washer goes on first. Got my butterfingers. Washer, lock washer, then your nut. Once again, go bolt on the inside with a washer. Then we have a washer on the outside, along with a lock washer and your nut. Alright, here's the fun part. This is the most meticulous part of it all. I will have to grab a tape measure real quick, because I don't have it on my pockets. Give me 1 second, I'll come right back. Here is the meticulous part. What I want you to do is there's a keyway in that shaft. It's a little groove. If you remember at the beginning of the video when we took this out, here's my key. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide that key back onto the shaft, and I'm going to slide the sprocket back on the exact same way this one's on. If you notice, the lock washer is going towards, it doesn't sit this way, the lock washer is going to the machine. So we're going to mount it back the exact same way that this bottom one's mounted. So there's a groove in your sprocket here. We're going to line it up with a keyway. Slide that right on there. But that went on pretty easily. Sometimes that can be a little booger. You might have to pop it on there, maybe get a little rubber mallet or something. Alright, from there, actually I'm going to take the chain off, because here's the important part, and I can't stress this enough, or it'll make a boatload of noise and it'll crank up, you'll just ruin stuff. What I want you to do is measure from the face of the machine to the center of this sprocket. Jason, if you want to come get a close-up of this. Basically right now I'm at 1 3/8 inches. So what I'm going to do is mark the dead center of that thing, and I'm going to come up and do the exact same thing up here. Whatever this is, you better match up with this to this one. So I'm going to go 1 3/8 inches. Now, we're going to measure again. These two in the exact same position, we're good to go. So now what I can do is tighten it down. Be very careful not to move this. And if you have Loctite, I suggest putting this on here. Not a big deal if you don't. Obviously, it can come out, but it's not a big deal. If you do, I just suggest putting it on. Since we do, I'm going to use it. Now, I've got one type. Before I move forward further, I can't stress enough, I always double, triple check all this stuff. Roller in place, we haven't tightened it down. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna measure the roller. It's 12 inches, so I'm gonna mark dead center of that. Now this is the difficult part, to an extent. Do the same here. Go dead center, and I'm gonna line these two lines up and tighten this down. I'll show you exactly what I mean. All right. You can either get real technical on this, grab something straight of any kind, line it up accordingly, which we're right on the money, or you can kind of eyeball it. It's up to you. I like making sure I'm right. So now that I know I've centered my roller up to the machine, I can tighten the roller down. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the lock collar on the bearings. Same thing. If you have Loctite, I suggest using it. If not, not a big deal. Torque it down and you're good to go. Before I move forward, I'm just making sure nothing's moved and we're still lined up. Close enough. Now I'm just going to simply tighten all four of these things, 2 on each bearing. Now when I say torque these down, I don't mean Hulk smash them. Just give them a quick tighten until it's nice and I don't know the word I'm looking for. Nice and tight. Alright, now that we have done that, you know this is not sliding left or right, I want to go ahead and mount this. Now the trick that I like doing, when I mount this, Jace, you're going to have to come around the front again, I'm sorry dude. And the only reason I say, there's a trick here. When I go to tighten this roller, pull it all the way back. And the reason I say that is because when we try and center the belt to the roller, sometimes I have to loosen one side, and I'm gonna let the belt tension straighten this thing out. Now you'll see at the end of the video what I'm talking about. So when I tighten these down, pull this roller as far back as it can go. Now that I've got my roller center, the bearings are tight. Now I'm gonna center the top sprocket with the bottom sprocket. You already got that video. Remember, we tighten one and remeasure, make sure it did not move. begins. Now we get to re-put our chain on. So what I want you to do here is go to the motor. I'm gonna place my hand underneath and I'm gonna simply pick up. You can see as this motor slides up and down here. I'm gonna get it all the way up. I'm gonna take my wrench and I'm gonna tighten just 2 of these bolts down. You don't have to really tighten them, just tighten them up a little bit so that motor stays in place. Now, I can add my chain back on. Son of a biscuit. Now you can see my chain is loose. We're going to go back and loosen those 2 bolts we just tightened down and simply let gravity take over. Alright. Now the motor's sitting down, there it is, nice and tight. My chain's nice and tight and snug. Now I'm going to tighten this sucker down. All 4 of them, but I want you to go diagonal from each other. So if you start bottom left, you go top right, vice versa. Just like doing your tire on your car. And I want to stress to you, do not over tighten these, because if you strip this out, you are stripping out the threads of the motor. That is not a good thing. We do not want to buy another motor because we've stripped out the threads. So just simply cinch them down, and when you feel it's tight enough for you, leave it alone. Nothing's going to happen. You're just fine. Alright, now that I know my chain is tight, we're good to go. I can put my chain guard back on, which is what I'm going to do. Now I already have all the parts because we took it apart and put it in here. So, there's a specific way that these go on. I want you to line them up before we put this in here. As you can see, one set of cleats is going to have, one side of the belt is going to have both outside, the other side is going to go to the inside. Alright, last but not least, we've got our pin inside our cleats, or inside our lacing here. Now the last thing I want to do is take my needle nose, and you'll notice one end is going to be bent. The other end we just shoved through. What I want you to do is bend this other end against the travel of the belt. So if the belt's going this way, obviously I want to bend it away from the travel. So that way, if anything happens and a t-shirt sits on top of it, that metal's not going to poke a hole in my t-shirt and rip my t-shirt back. So at this point, we'll simply bend it in, kind of tuck it right under that belt. Voila! Last thing we have to do is now run the machine and center our belt. We're going to cut the machine on. Belt should start moving. If it doesn't, that's fine. It's because I don't have it tightened. I got too much loose. So that's when I come down here and I'm going to yank. Now be careful not to get your fingers trapped in here. So what I'm going to do, cut that back off, yank this down. And we'll tighten this roller back. Alright. Now that this one's tight, I'm going to let this run, and this belt's either going to walk left or right. If it doesn't, then you did amazing and you got it perfectly centered on the get-go. Good job. Now you can see this belt has walked to the left over here. We've got a bigger gap here compared to here. So there's one of 2 ways you can do this. You can make your life easy, we can go to the top, or you can make your life simple or simplified. We'll start right here. take anything that you can gain leverage with. We're going to come to this roller. Now since it's walking this way, I need to take this down, which in theory, right now it's doing my roller. If this is my roller, it is basically off-center doing one of these. So what I want to do, move the left side down to make that belt walk right. So once again, right now it's walking this way, which means my roller is at an angle. So I'm going to take this side, and I'm going to pull it down, which in theory is going to make that belt walk back. We're going to level it out. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it just a little bit at a time and then tighten it up, and I'm going to let it sit for another 5 minutes and then come back and watch it. This is a very time-consuming process. It will not happen in 2 minutes. Obviously, I've yet to walk the belt right, so I'm going to grab my tape measure. We'll cut my machine off. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to go from the front of the machine to the very top of the roller. Just eyeball it, not a big deal. And do the same for over here. And I'm going to make these the exact same distance on both sides. So this one is shorter. Obviously, I've got to pull it down further. In order to do that, you can get this on the side, sir. In order to do that, here's where I've got all thread running from here all the way up, held by a bolt. So I'm going to back that top bolt out, which obviously I'm doing it on this side. I'm not moving this one. I'm going to back that top bolt out, and that'll allow me to pull that down until it hits that top nut. So I'm going to do it on this side, but I want you to see how I did it. Come back over here, loosen this up. Give it a good tug. We're going to tighten it back, remeasure. Do the same thing over. So I've come back. I notice this is walked over just a little bit, still not as much as I want it to, but I'm a perfectionist. This is perfectly okay. Obviously, nothing's touching my side guards. This belt is ready to go. Now the only thing I got to do is check the tension. So I'm going to cut my machine off. I'm going to ball up a fist, and I'm going to put it just like this under that belt. And if I've got tension on that belt and I can't move my hand, that's what I want. Now if I can move my hand up and down, we've got to tighten that up a little further. This is your belt tensioner, so once again, we'll do exactly what we did. We'll loosen these up, move the top nut away as far back, and shove that sucker down to make tension. If it's too tight, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to loosen the bottom nut and push this whole unit up. Simple as that. The last thing I want to talk about is the feet adjustment. You've got 4 feet on this machine. All you have to do is loosen the jam nut. Jason, get that here, I'll roll it up.
I can see it.
So there's the jam nut. I'm going to loosen that up, and then all I have to do is pick up my machine, and I can maneuver this in and out to accommodate whatever size I want this, or whatever height I need this to be on all 4 of them. Simple as that. I hope we've answered all the questions that you have. I thank you for having the NEDCO 6L incline conveyor. Thank you guys for joining the company. Have a wonderful day.